very led to just go live and vibe with you. I wanted to talk about a couple things. I just saw that the news. I'm actually informed. I'm an informed citizen of my country. I'm American, if you couldn't tell. And Charlie Kirk, he died. That's crazy. Or not. Honestly, it is unfortunate, and my heart feels very heavy. And I figured it would be a good time to go live. And also, in the mail, I got this Storyteller Tactics, which I've played with this deck a couple times in different spaces, and I really enjoyed it. So I figured, why not? And they had a promotion. In exchange, I got this, and they can send me lots of promotional emails, and I will most likely unsubscribe eventually if I don't find any value. But for now, I'm very excited, and we're gonna open it up. You can see I was trying to open it up. I thought I did make a dent. I did not. So storytelling, debating, and society. Those are the topics that we are touching upon today. The first one, storytelling, storyteller tactics, will be here to help us. Fun fact, I was on a kind of like a debate club back in my college years. I was actually one of the founding members of this debate club. We were called the Discourse Club. I actually have a pen because I was the treasurer and I gotta pick out stuff and get them. So we got this cool pen. It just says Discourse Club. Yeah, so it was a fun time. We would talk about sensitive subjects that were highly emotional. And I realized something from being in that club, and really the structure was pretty simple. We would have a subject, and the subject would be a very sensitive subject from gosh, oh man, how are you doing, Julio? Oh, how are you? I opened up the box. It's opening. ASMR. And okay, yeah, some of some of them would be like obesity in America. Is it because of, the government, or is it because of the culture? Some would be more sensitive. We talked about gun violence. Also, we talked about trans rights and different mental health disorders, and what we believed was good or bad. And at the end of the day, it was something I learned, and something I've learned from hosting spaces, are that you're always going to have polarizing people. Their views are going to clash, and your view might clash. You're a human being, and that person is still a person, and their view is actually contributing to the diversity of the conversation. And the end goal is not to say that you're right. The end goal is to more deeply understand the entire subject that's being talked about, and to see and where other people are coming from with their views, what they were taught, how they were raised, their experiences. And it absolutely helps bring a new sense of understanding. Without understanding, when it comes to debating, that's not really a debate. That's just talking to a brick wall and seeing what echoes back. Okay. So I do want to make a video of why I pray, and I am planning on slowly making more videos that I feel led to make. And I pause because immediately, like, flashback, I'm like, this is not gonna make some people happy, and that's okay because it's going to make my soul feel free. And at the end of the day, that's all I can ask for in life, honestly. So here's the Storyteller Tactics Volume 1. I also have a feeling that they had a surplus amount of Volume 1 and they are trying to make space for Volume 2. And that's why they were having this like promotion on the Storyteller Tactics. But yeah, we're going to go through. I really do like Pip decks. I like the creations that they make, and I just pray that this live vibe will be a good one that will produce understanding more deeply of our society as a whole. Amen. And yeah, of course, yeesh, like the ego, it really do be getting in the way. And that ego, it has a leash on our emotions. It really does. If we're not careful, it knows exactly how to trigger you, and you'll. So, emotions are energy in motion, and in the Bible they're described as spirits. And a spirit has an end destination. The end destination is that spirit manifesting that energy, that it is there. It is energy in motion. It is bringing you somewhere. So the thing with debating, I think, is like it can get pretty sensitive when you're talking about sensitive subjects, and you have emotional charges already there. In any relationship, if you have an emotional charge and that that opposing source starts prodding at it, that's going to trigger you, and that's natural. That's how we are. But when it comes to debating, and I have to remind myself this all the time in just life in general, it's not about being right or making sure that you share your point because you feel like it's right. It's about understanding where the other person is coming from. So I just finished listening to the audiobook, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful or Efficient People. I can't remember the word exactly. And I think one of the habits, maybe it was like 5 or 6, was about understanding before you say anything. And I was like, dang, that makes so much sense. And I find myself sometimes, like, I get excited and I want to say something. And I'm like, ooh, I have an experience. But is it actually relevant to that person? Now, in a sense, like, I'm going live and I'm just sharing as I process what's come up. Also, a verse that really helped me, a Bible verse that really helped me is, but you're dead and your life is hid within Christ with God. And I believe that's Corinthians 3:3. And I'm still, my head doesn't fully understand that verse, so I'm still rapping with it. But that's what came up today in light of everything, really before everything, but now it's really coming into light. And it has me thinking. It has me thinking in the background of what's going on. So, all right, let's play with this beautiful deck, the Storyteller Tactics deck. It's been a while. The last time I played with it, I was in San Francisco for an incubator school, and I think the idea was to use this as a way to make a pitch deck, but we're going to be using it in this live for whatever God has me to do. All right, so we have about the author, Steve Rawling. Great little photo of him. Love that. He left journalism to start his own business, and here we are, and I have his deck. By the way, just throwing this out there, dream goal of mine to publish my own deck of cards. And if you have been around here, then you know I do really love to draw and illustrate, and I have a lot of cards. So beautiful. All right, so we have our deck. I'm gonna go ahead and take the last card as well. And, ooh, pick any card. So, We got all of these beautiful cards. And I'm just going to go ahead with okay. We're going to go with Story Bank first. And it says, we mess up when we tell stories that are boring. Tell the same story twice to the same person. Disrespectful. Wasting the audience's time. Gossipy. Repeat a story we were told in confidence. Stolen. Pass someone else's information or story off as our own. And stale. A story that's past its sell-by date. So you need a story bank to avoid these pitfalls. Use a notepad and write down a few things. Who might find this story useful? Who have I told the story to already? And whose story is it? Is it okay for me to share it? Is this story still up to date? All right, well, all right. You know what? Okay. I think right now, one of the bigger stories in the collective consciousness that's going around is, wow, Charlie Kirk was assassinated during a debate about gun violence, I guess you could say. Ironic, right? And you have a group of people that are mourning, and then you also have a group of people that are like, I don't want to say glad, but they seem to feel like it was his sentence, you know, it was what he deserved. And there's a story going on that he's a memory. And that's what they want you to believe, but it's really the beginning of a movement. And I feel this movement is not just this one situation, but maybe you felt it today. I definitely felt it today. I just felt like, this is going to be the beginning of a new chapter. And that's fun. Good for you, Julio. That's good practice. It's probably good. So when he died, I believe that it's not a memory, but it really is a movement. More people felt like, wow, yes, it's important to have these conversations, but it's more important to understand one another. And where it becomes hard to understand one another is when our emotions, our ego blinds us. Our ego is connected with our solar plexus, and our solar plexus is, you know, the sun. It's connected to that planet, the element of fire. It's hot, and it's connected with our gut, you know, it's located in that area. When we cannot digest the truth, what do? We throw it up. It doesn't look the same, but all the pieces are technically there. And I do feel, and I have been noticing, that a lot of people are moved by what's happened recently. And some are saying this is a memory. I believe I've also seen many use their voice now to kind of realize the severity. And when we talk about it, and I work a lot with most of the clients, the clients that I work with, they struggle with fear of judgment when it comes to expressing themselves. And you could say this is the reason why. Because, you know, back then, it would be classic, you're a witch, burn the witch. Does she float? She does. Or burn them, hang them. They are against society's normal standard of living and how we communicate. We do not understand it and we fear it. Therefore, we will try to destroy it. So I believe a lot of people are saying, okay, okay, Charlie Kirk died. He will always be in our memory. It's not just a memory, though. It is a movement. It is a movement. Our memory, 70% of it is fabricated. Your emotions are the key to any memory you have. Do you remember the bland days? Only if they're so bland that emotionally you're stunned by how bland and blah it is. Your emotions are tied to your memories. And what are emotions? They are energy in motion. Every single memory you have is pushing you somewhere. And that's why you remember it. You don't remember the things that you don't feel are significant to your soul's journey. And so they just fall away. Maybe they were important to someone else, but to you they were not. And so I feel like from what I observe, I think there's a good amount of people that are, they didn't really know Charlie Kirk. I didn't really know Charlie Kirk that well. They didn't really support his political views or all that he was sharing, but they were appalled that he went in that way just because of the way he was talking and the sensitivity in the subjects and how he was handling them. And I think for many it made them realize, like, I should speak up. This person died because they really, really valued talking about the most sensitive subjects that triggered so many people. And to be fair, they weren't doing it in the most light way. They were at times quite dismissive. And I think for a lot of people, they don't share, they don't debate, they don't want, like, there are so many people that are afraid of confrontation and are afraid of society seeing them in a negative light. And so they decide not to share the truth in their souls. And again, the idea of debating is not to say you are right. The idea is to understand the other side. So I think sometimes if you've debated, sometimes they'll be like, I understand. And then they'll continue. And you should never be the one to say you understand. You should look to the person you're debating with and see if they feel like you actually understand them. Because you'll know if they open up, if they feel like they can kind of rest at ease a little bit, like their guard isn't all the way up because you're actually wanting to see their side of things. It makes it that much easier for you to share your side of things without either one of you, needing to change your opinion, but at least you have greater understanding of where that person is coming from, and you have a respect for the voice that they're sharing and where they're coming from. Okay. So yeah, it's John, it's interesting. I think the idea of memories, most of the things that are memories, they move through us. It's not just a memory in terms of it's stale. It happened and now it's done. I think in this case, just because of the nature and how many people and how, what's good, Jamin? And like the sensitivity and just the fact so many people were involved and so many eyes were on it. It's a collective memory. And when something becomes a collective memory, like take for instance, tomorrow's 9/11, it shifts the consciousness of the collective. They're no longer, there's something unifying them. And it changes the way they act towards one another and their internal metrics, because it's kind of like, my values are being tested here. Never try to defend your feelings. I'm learning this. And I'm going to pull another deck and see if I can make a little story about it, because why not? Universal story. Let's see what this says. Okay, I'm using the storyteller tactics deck for anybody who's no here anyways. And this says, can you tell a story about people involved in your project based on any of these common traits? Free will. Oh, we see ourselves as other people, as free-willed individuals making deliberate choices. Okay. Wait, it gets better. Okay, free will is the first one, so keep that in mind. I'm gonna tell a universal story using free will. Maybe I'll use there's 6 of them, so if I use more than half of these, and the story will illustrate afterwards, then amazing. Free will. Conflict and cooperation. Everyone is capable of both. Inconsistencies. We all have gaps between what we do, say, and think. Fear and bravery. We all understand that fears can be overcome. Right and wrong. We all understand the difference. And rites of passage. You know, all cultures have childhoods and rite of adult, that rite of way. Okay. Ooh. Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm going to tell a story. And this is actually not my story. This is a story that I was listening to the other day, and I believe it's for those who hold a cockroach, something like that. Cockroaches have been a very interesting spirit animal in my life. So the way the story goes, really, there's a boy, and he's eating dinner one night, and he sees a cockroach, and he screams and says, "Go away, cockroach. I don't want you here." And then he stops and he thinks about why he reacted that way, because, a lot of us do. And he remembered that his mom, when he was very young, screamed and said, "Go away, cockroach. I don't want you here." And so he realized that maybe he doesn't have to be scared, and he then observes the cockroach. And then after that, he has a couple of other instances with love. He says, "Go away, love. I don't want you here." And it's because of a heartbreak. And he's in traffic, and he's driving to the doctor's, and he doesn't like the fact that he can't really he can't really go anywhere. He says, "Go away, all these people, all this unnecessary weight. I don't want you here." And the idea is that slowly he realizes every trigger that comes up, he goes to the doctor. The doctor says that he only has, however long to live, and again the same reaction: "Go away, death. I don't want you here." And he has all of these memories that he's connected to his belief system that has allowed him to believe this. And at the end, he really goes full circle back to the cockroach, and he's now accepted death, and he's now also accepted that these were all past beliefs that were not necessarily true. They were just based off of experiences that he's had, and he can change that paradigm, that narrative. And I think a lot of the times we have these experiences, and it's fascinating. Same thing happens with plants. If you cut them down low, they will learn, and they will, in the DNA of the seeds, they will learn to blossom earlier so that they can spread their seeds. They will learn to grow and to produce seeds earlier because they remember the pain of being cut, and they pass that down to their seeds. So when their seeds grow without even cutting the grass, those initial seeds will also stay low until they know it's all right to do otherwise. So this is the idea of how much of free will is actually free will. So in this case, I think a lot of people are scared because, I mean, I'm kind of shocked. I'm like, dang, man, weapons and stuff and emotions. And when you have both of them, it's like you don't know what's going to happen. And so the use of free will, let's tap this all in. In the story with the boy and the cockroach, he was able to change his perspective. He was able to change the patterns that he had been tied to for a very long time, that he believed were his. And in the story, or in the light of what happened today, there's a couple of shootings that happened today, but I guess specifically with Charles, dang, I'm forgetting his name, not the best with names, but he used his free will to talk about what he believed should be talked about, and you got to respect that. I think a lot of people were like, you shouldn't really talk about these things and you should accept them, and he really did debate that. And so when it came to conflict and cooperation, I think that he kind of he bit the bullet with the conflict side. And what does that say about a society that cannot cooperate with each other when there is conflict in our belief systems, in the ideologies that we hold? I value diversity. I think it's a beautiful thing, and especially working with gardens and restoration areas, you need diversity. You need multiple plants. You need these things, because we cannot lean on one plant, for all of the sustenance that we need for life. There are so many beautiful little insects and animals, birds, and so many plants out there, and they all contribute to each other to create a harmonious environment that we can live in. But there is conflict. There's conflict in the plant kingdom, There are weeds for a reason. And I think energetically in humanity, there are weeds that have been going unchecked. And a lot of these weeds, when I talk about emotions, and I've been working on curating a spiritual cultivation workshop. I'm very excited, and I will be sharing that very soon. It is free, this one, by the way. It's going to be my first one, and I've been so thankful. Thank you, God, for, divinely guiding me to put the pieces together. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that, but collectively speaking, a lot of these weeds are tied in fear. They're tied in apathy. They're tied in this feeling of helplessness, this feeling of anger and self-hatred. And I think we don't talk a lot about the self-hatred that has strangled the collective. But there's a lot of self-hatred collectively. And it is silly, again, that idea of debating. You can share, self-love as much as you want. But it's futile to someone who is dealing with severe self-hatred. You cannot expect them to change their mind. The best that you can do is understand where they're coming from and why they feel that way. I think it's a beautiful fact that we all have inconsistencies. We have moments where someone might believe that they are indulging in self-loving tendencies. Now, let me tell you, the biggest weed on this earth, other than the love of money, which is the biggest one, it is tied to the tree of knowledge. And I'm not even going to touch on that right now for the fact of, yeah, it's my bedtime in 9 minutes. But the biggest weed that I've seen is really the fear of not being liked, because you hate yourself so much that the only place that you can find any grain of love is in other people. And if other people do not validate you, then it's absolutely destroying. And so the fear of not being liked causes you to do things without realizing it that are actually taking away from the energy of just liking yourself. It's a lot easier said than done, especially because I feel the energy of self-hatred in the collective, and it is strong. And I think, yeah, that's like number one weapon, the demons can use, because how can you stand up and say what is your truth, what you are here to do, to honor your soul, when you struggle to look at yourself in the mirror or struggle to really give yourself that love? So what happens with this fear of not being liked? The way fear goes, and it's a tricky energy, but again, energy in motion, it goes to a place where it blinds you from seeing the fear. And when you no longer can see the fear, it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means you cannot see it until it's too late, because you are walking into that fear's, you could say, incubation pod. It is how the fear says, okay, I need you to feel something in order for me to grow. So once you start feeling the things, congratulations, it's growing. So bravery, on the other hand, is owning up to your mistakes, admitting that you're afraid, looking the fear in the face. It doesn't mean defeating it. It doesn't mean conquering the fear. It doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to admit that I kind of hate myself. I hate that I did this, that, and the other thing. And then all of a sudden, and please forgive me, Lord, for even saying, you're going to be hunky-dory. It requires the bravery to sit in the silence of what comes next, of the unknown. And I think that's a really hard thing, and I respect those who are able to admit that they're wrong. If you're debating anyone anytime and you say, you're right, I'm wrong, well, automatically, if that person likes to debate, they're not going to debate. But what they are going to do is say, oh, okay, and how were you wrong? What exactly was your view? All of a sudden they want to know, like, I want to know more about what you were thinking, because you said you were wrong, and like, how are you wrong? And then they will share their view. Anyways, that is important. And most importantly, growth. At the end of the day, we just want to grow as humans. We want to grow. I personally am on a mission to grow closer to God. I just want to know God. If we, ate the tree of knowledge, I pray that I can know God as much as I possibly can. And I think that's a big motivator in life, to help me grow. And especially, I never realized how important humility and being humble would be. But my God, it is the way you kill the ego without going through that dramatic ego death. It is just a subtle way to ground yourself, to quiet that flame of being controlled by your emotions and the identity that you have made up from your experiences in the past. And to be humble is such a hard thing in this world. And I think it's seen in a negative light for the most part. But the more I dive into, like, actually being humble literally neutralizes your ego in a way that I am just now realizing, like, how powerful the act of humility is. I believe on my 24th birthday, what's good, Jim? I decided to understand and become more humble. And I didn't really know where to start. Now I feel a little bit more grounded in understanding the nature of what it means to be low to the ground and why it is so important, especially with understanding God and understanding and building and yeah, building a relationship with God. I realized that you could see ego as your little devil because it acts just like that. It is easily offended, kind of always wants to be right, will exaggerate everything, will absolutely use any excuse to trigger your emotions to get to some other place that it thinks is better. And your ego literally is the devil. It is the story that you've made up about yourself because, well, we all know as humans we're obsessed with ourselves. I mean, look at some of the things. Look at the phone that you're on. I wouldn't say, maybe obsessed is a strong word. But yeah, I think there's a good and evil. Of course, the ego is serving a purpose, just like the devil is serving a purpose. And to trust that God is leading and guiding and is so gracious, that is such a big blessing. I think that is the key when it comes to no longer having fear of sharing your truth in a society that is easily triggered and offended, more and more so, where many souls feel like the world should be catered towards them and should affirm them and share that love while they themselves are stewing in self-hatred. Again, there are two leads that I am seeing very prominently in the collective consciousness. The top one is being the love of money. It is the root of all evil. The second one stemming off of it is a stemming of self-hatred. And the self-hatred really does make it a bit difficult to accept a God in your life because God is love. And self-hatred is a bit of a tricky thing because it's like, how many people want to admit that? You may know it when you do, feel those emotions.